Hit the record button. You look ready. That's a lot of cards.
It's just two.
Oh. All right. You look ready. All right. Let's do this. Welcome to the buy list. This is episode 82.
This is not financial advice. This is cardboard. Shashaisha. Unlucky.
Unlucky. Nate, we took a week off due to
Yeah.
life things. That happens.
Yo.
But we're back now. And how was your weekend fab, dude?
It was great. Took the Bolton Armory deck to the local armory. I was feeling really confident. I 2-1 the week before. Super, super close. Literally playing my buddy on. Well, he was playing, dude. He's got this like crackhead Katsu build,
Yeah.
and it comes down to I overblock his pain in the backside, and he goes throw daggers, draw a card. I'm at 2, mind you. I go I go to 1, and then he goes throw daggers. I go nice, and those are he literally drew into the second throw daggers off the first throw daggers to exactly kill me. Otherwise, he's dead on board.
Oh my God, dude.
So I 2-1s. I was feeling super confident going in because I was like, you know what? I was this close to 3-0 and being freed of my Bolton Armory deck. And then I promptly proceed to 0-3.
Oh my God. Reset the clock.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
So,
Yeah.
but if you haven't watched the short yet, got a cold foil Obsidian Fire Vein. So $50 into the coffers, which
Yes,
I'm going to trade back the Warband of Bologna. I'm going to give back the Celestial Cataclysm because I ain't never playing that card. And I'm gonna be patient and wait until I have enough for a Fyendal's Spring Tunic.
Yeah.
Because that's like the last thing I think I need to finally be able to push myself over the top. So I need about $150.
Yeah, so yeah. Wait, you can get the non-foil, right? Oh wait. Yeah, so I've been putting those shorts together and I've been impressed with gym packs, man. There's some nice hits in there still.
Yeah.
People are pretty hyped about them. I sold a mark of the Black Widow, I think it was, the rainbow foil for like $27 last week. I was like, dang, dude, that's some good value for just showing up to the armory.
Yeah.
Those cold foil weapons are super popular. And you've like upgraded that deck quickly because of that fact. Like you've hit some nice things, and so it's really cool to see it like working as intended, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'm excited to see. Hopefully, you can get that 3-0 and you can put Bolton down, maybe.
Okay, but I'm gonna start back up again with Maxx when Maxx comes out.
Oh yeah, Maxx will be great.
Yeah.
My weekend fab, dude, I won my armory for the first time in a long time. I put together a Vincent because I finally got over the fact that she just frustrated me to no ends. And I was like, I haven't played her since Rosetta. And man, that deck's really fun.
Mm-hmm.
When it goes, it goes.
Yeah, it does.
And so I had a lot of fun doing that. I played a Vincent Mirror in the 2-0 match, which was kind of funny.
Were you both like, what are you doing?
What are you doing here?
What are we both doing here?
Yeah. Paul, my opponent, he's like just been a huge Vincent guy since like day one. He's like been there with pummels with me, and then I set the deck down, and he just kept going and going, and he hadn't stopped. And like one of the newer guys at the tables were like, "Dude, Paul, you can't let that new Vincent player beat you." And I'm like, "Bro, bro." It's like, no. I'm the shadow. I'm the Shadow Room Blade player. But it was a fun game. I learned that basically in the mirror, you just don't let Deathly Whales hit or the Rune Chance on that turn.
Yep.
And it helps a ton.
Yeah.
It kind of spiraled on them because I just made it a point to like pitch and block and then move on. So that was cool. It was exciting. But moving on to our next point, Nate,
Yeah.
is we had Kobe calling
Hmm.
happen this weekend.
Yeah.
I guess like we're not gonna break down the whole thing, but the positive notes are like the highlights of the event, and I think what pertains to like our main topic for the night is that Aurora was showing up and showing out. I
Yeah.
think she was like three times she was represented three more, like 3x the next highest hero, and Florian won the whole event, which was like I woke up and I was like, wait. I'm like, I gotta go back and watch these videos now. It was
Ted,
like
Ted woke
crazy,
up and thought
dude.
it was a dream, went back to sleep.
Yeah, I was like, wait a second, I'm not up yet. Dude, it was cool, man. Like the guy played I his name is slipping my mind now, the player, but he played out of his mind. He played really well.
Yeah, he balled
Um
out for sure.
and but we saw I guess mainly we want to talk about is the Armory deck, right? Armory deck Aurora came out and was legal for the event. And yeah, a lot of those cards made it onto the screen and into the stream, you know. So
Yeah, the Armory deck really, really gave Aurora some like juice, and she was already one of the best decks in the format,
mm,
and just adds a lot of consistency pieces. And I think she's going to be very good. The funny part is like looking at the deck, it's like hard to be I think it's fine. It's probably a little bit overtuned, but there's like
yeah,
literally not a whole lot you can take out of the deck to be like, ah, fix it, without like
yeah,
basically making the deck unplayable. Fine. Um, so
yeah,
I just like it kind of is what it is. I think we'll see like what Maxx Armory deck looks like and what the high seas look like.
yeah,
Um, but it's pretty clear Aurora's best deck in format, and it's not
hmm,
particularly close. So um, you really, really have to make sure that like you have a super tight game plan into her if you're bringing things that aren't. And he did. Um, he clearly did, and everyone on stream who played into an Aurora, it was pretty clear they had a very clean game plan into Aurora and just tried to enact that. And it was up to the Auroras to kind of
hmm,
respond, which is what kind of happens when you have these top decks in the format. It's like the the decks that are not the top deck have so many more reps into Aurora
yeah,
than Aurora probably has into their deck. So it's like figuring out, all right, those Auroras have to enact their game plan on the fly and adjust to the game plan that they have for them. So,
hmm,
um, but yeah, I mean, we're seeing it with Rosetta too. Like, all of the Lightning Majestics seem to have gone up in price. Just a bucko.
yeah. Yeah, I think you know, and I don't think we've been talking about it. You know, last week we had off, we didn't have an article, but Rosetta in general seems pretty thin. Like boxes, sealed product. We you know, and it seemed like it was like you know, it was hard to get, right? It was like sold out everywhere. But since we've last had an episode, Min Max had some pop up. I think they were selling for like 105 a box or something like that. Um, I think you had said that you tried to get some from distro previously, like a couple weeks ago, and weren't able to, but now all of a sudden you can.
It seems I don't want to accuse anybody of anything, but it seems like people be playing some games because all of a sudden stores can get a little bit of product, and like you can see that with MinMax getting a restock of Rosetta. I don't think MinMax was just like, oops, there's some cases in the back.
Yeah,
Because like no one for the last like 3 years has been like, I'm gonna sit on cases. It's such a good idea. Remember
yeah,
Monarch and Red Tails? It's great. Stash your cases away. They'll be
yeah.
worth millions. No one's doing that. They're just selling the product that they have. Um, so It kind of feels like some distro games are getting played here. So I know people are a little bit worried about like Rosetta skyrocketing in price for all of the mainstay like staples, which that
Yeah.
set has a ton of staples for the heroes. Um, but I think that we'll start to see a slow trickle out. I think that we'll see the prices continue to come down. Um, but I think it really illustrates like the effect that these armory decks have
Yeah.
on the secondary market. Like we've seen it time and time again. Even like it, it's funny to think that the Aurora deck has uh, two arc lightnings in it, but like the arc lightning in Rosetta is still like $6-7. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't make any sense. Um,
Yeah, normally TCG Play reacts a little bit quicker than this. Like we're recording this on the Monday after the release of the deck, and typically it's like up reprinted, boom, couple dollars down instantly, right? Someone's
yeah,
like, I just want to sell these. So it's surprising to see them stick around. I've sold a couple at $6 out of my Armory decks, the extras that I had. So like Arc Lightning is yeah, it's sticking around. I think, like you said too, it's interesting. Rosetta might be, um, it just has a lot of stressors on it, right? Like it has two armory decks that directly pull from it with Jarl and now Aurora.
yep,
It'll be curious to see if LSS continues this like design product, right? Like right now we're seeing we're just past or this like design like product released where we're just past wave two of the hunted and wave two kind of nuked some of those majestics pretty tough. I mean, like right now we're in that zone. I think I said it on my market minute, right? We're in that time frame where like you probably, if you haven't picked up your play sets, you might want to pick up your play sets of some of the cheaper cards in the hunted right now. They're kind of, a lot of them are seeing like all time lows.
yep.
But that's typical. Like that, I'm not surprised by that. But we do have a bunch more armored decks, Nate. So like, what if they like drop like two armored decks that are draconic, right, or an assassin armored deck, right, to kind of like just build that foundation underneath the hunted as we move into the end of the year, like they did with Rosetta, with Jarl, and now Aurora. Um, I think that would be chef's kiss, just that little extra push from the markets. You drop the Huntsman Armory deck or Dromai, like everyone's been trying to predict for a year and a half now. It's like, dude, the next Armory deck has to be Dromai, guys. Come on, it has to be. And they're like, Aurora. You're like,
Yeah.
damn it, the next Armory deck, Maxx. Damn it. Like, come on, man. You're killing us, James. You're killing us.
I think we probably do see the Dromai Armory deck. I don't know, like I know they moved Jarl up in the design window because I think they wanted Jarl to release closer to Smash Palace. If I'm remembering
Okay.
the interview that they had correctly, is that that's where they wanted that to line up, but
Mm.
they were worried about they wanted to reintroduce ice back into the format to slow things down a little bit. Um,
Yeah.
and make sure people didn't get too out of hand, and it kind of in preparation for the hunted, where it's like Citra, if she doesn't have a frostbite, might be a little bit of an issue.
Bro,
Uh,
she's dead. She didn't even zero Syndras converted to top 64.
yeah, the deck's
They
bad.
just,
It's as soon as you learn how to play into it, it's like very easy to target, and
it does the same thing every hand, right? It's just
yeah,
like,
it's
okay.
yes, it is. It is very predictable. The play
Yeah.
patterns are very clear, and you just
Top
kind of get
max.
you get
Dot
wrecked
deck.
by like a random shelter where it's like flick, and it's
Yeah.
like I need this dollar too because then I'm gonna breaking point you, and it's like no, and it's just like
All right.
my hand doesn't convert anymore. I needed those monies. Um,
Yeah.
so With all that being said, though, what is interesting is like looking at potentially bright lights for Maxx cards,
Mm,
um, and trying to like get kind of like again, it's like what we do here is we try to get ahead of the curve. If you are interested in playing Maxx, like, all right, how do we kind of beat people to the punch before things get expensive? Because guess what, bright lights ain't. Um,
well, the obvious cards for Max are expensive still, or like I guess not expensive, but um, they're holding their value, right? Twin Drive
Twin
and
Drive and Heist, yeah. I
yeah,
mean, but like those were
those are staples.
always,
Yeah,
yeah, those are always just going to be mech staples because they're just like good cards. But
you
like,
better believe it though. A week before that deck releases, those two cards will go up in price though. So like if you don't
probably,
have them, you're gonna, you know,
yeah,
uh,
like
I don't.
that. We look at Moonshot, even like System Reset. Like these are all cards that like potentially could like go up in value. Any of the crank items that don't like actually make your skin crawl when being played are like potentially good cards to
Yeah.
like just look at because like I'm literally looking at them right now and sheesh, is there a lot of cheap cards in bright lights.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
there's a lot of sub-dollar majestics that listen, if you can pick up your playset now for $3 and just kind of be done with it. And then like even like the Evo face breakers,
Yeah.
like or like all the Evo cards, like the arms are interesting, the headpiece is interesting. It's
Hmm.
it it feels like we're missing something and we just haven't really thought that we haven't really figured out the fact that there's an Armory deck for Maxx coming out and a lot of
Yeah.
these cards are probably going to be pretty good in him because they are revamping how he plays the video game.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. So it's a little bit of a wild card right now because the two cards that we got spoiled for that deck, Nate, it definitely speaks to like you don't want to be building you don't want to be building the mech. You want to be doing like boost hammer or wrench, like boost wrench, and then sometimes you go wrench, you're like boost wrench, which is like gonna be really good, especially if you get that +2. Um, Item out, right?
Yeah.
So it is a little bit of a wild card on that deck. Like, when they announced the Aurora deck, you're like, bro, I know what like Channel Lightning Valley, you're gonna, those were very easy to um that deck was very easy to predict what staples you're gonna want to slam into it, you know.
Mhm.
But Max, I don't know. Like you said, there could be some sleepers and bright lights that are just like, oh my god, this deck cooks now, right?
Yeah.
And you're gonna need three of them.
Yep.
Um, I'd be curious. I wonder, like reprint wise, I think you're. I don't know. Like reprint wise, it feels pretty safe. Like
Yeah,
they can't reprint things in that deck, right? Like,
the only thing I could really possibly see them reprinting is like maybe Pulse Wave,
mm,
but like it's just not. It wouldn't be on theme for. I mean, it kind of is, but like thematically, because it kind of looks like he's like busting some stuff up in that picture. But like,
yeah.
it's clear they're trying to take this in a different direction. And I was listening to the Runaways podcast actually on my way home today. Shout out to our boys over at the Runaways.
Yep.
And I forgot who said it. I think it might have been Noah about how they're like Maxx is getting a rework. And it really like I was like, man, it Flesh and Blood is basically like the trading card game of Living Legend or
Yeah.
uh, League of Legends. Jeez, oh Pete.
Yeah.
Um, because like they can release an Armory deck like this, and it really is like a hero rework where it's like
Yeah.
they get all these new cards. They like completely change how the player like how this character wants to play the game.
Hmm.
Um, and I've always felt like it has so many resemblances to like League and like you pick your character, you upgrade them, and it's kind of like as I'm building my Armory deck, it's like yeah, I'm like going back to the shop and I'm catching my
Yeah. Yeah.
potions and I'm getting some boots.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and it feels very like thematic in the same way too. It's where you really feel like you kind of like embody those characters when you're playing them.
Hmm.
And I think it's why Flesh and Blood resonates so well. But
Yeah.
I am excited to see the Maxx rework
Yeah.
and how he plays. But I think there's a lot of cards that we're probably sleeping on right now that are potentially like big game changers for Maxx in the once the Armory deck drops.
Yeah, I would like I'm trying to think. I don't think there's any like majestics that like pop into my head right now that like specifically pump a weapon. Um do you know of it? Because that's what I would be keying in on. Because I think you're gonna want to be making that wrench big, so, especially since it has overpower and you can swing with it twice.
Gigawatt does hit a weapon, but that's just a rare.
Yeah, it's just a rare. If you
Uh,
don't have your rainbow foils and you bling out mech stuff, grab gigawatts because I think there's a chance
like
you might be running those.
the one card that like I'm looking at is like Supercell, right? Like it was a expansion in MST.
Oh
Like
yeah, yeah,
I know it kind of popped off a little bit when Max was announced, but it's really come back down. Like I'm looking at, you can get a playset right now for 270 each, which is
not
pretty
bad.
reasonable.
Yeah, because that card was kind of like pigeonholed into this is how you get the mech out, right? This is how you keep your hyperdrivers around. But if it turns out when you get to play, if you can like build up resources and play your aggro deck for free,
Yeah.
that's pretty good too. Like you
Well,
might want to pump up some hyperdrivers, you know?
because we have no idea how items go underneath
The
uh,
weapon, yeah,
the
that's true.
weapon, but I could see like if it's like, hey, instead of putting steam counters onto hyperdrivers, you may put a like steam counter or like a hyperdriver, like a token hyperdriver underneath this. So like Crankshaft, Big Bertha, those cards when they get boosted over the top,
Oh
put
yeah.
put steam counters on your hyperdrivers, but you can just like say, all right, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to put it underneath my weapon instead.
Oh yeah. Like yeah, when you boost this attack, you can put a hyperdrive. You can put this underneath your weapon or something. Yeah, that would be kind of cool. Then you should be looking at twin drive. 'Cause you're gonna want to be boosting and finding those guys, right?
Yeah, you're going to want to boosting a lot. So
Yeah.
it once we see it, it's going to be too late.
Yep.
Like that stuff's
Yep.
going to be booking.
Yeah.
Um, so if you're excited about the Armory deck, probably best to just scoop some up now while it's cheap because Mech is like really out of favor. So
Yeah.
especially Max. So cards like Moonshot, shoot, I sold a bunch of Moonshots
Yeah.
on like the announcement,
Same.
but those
Yeah.
things have like since the announcement, it's all trickled back down. And this is kind of like how like the hype release cycle goes, right? Announce thing, random cards that are related to things spike, don't
Yeah.
buy. They trickle back down, and then it's gonna hit like a lull until it's like probably like depending on what's releasing, like Armory decks, it's usually like 2 weeks before because usually that's when we
Mhm.
start to see all the cards
Yeah.
and people are getting excited because they're testing it on Talishar, and then that's when
Mhm.
it's going to start to go back up. But it like if it's like a main set, it's usually pop, and then it like slowly trickles back down, and then usually like a month or so before, like
Spoilers
usually once
start.
spoilers are like announced and they're starting to go live is when it starts to trickle back up. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, the 2 month window on how they're announcing these armory decks is kind of gives it, you're right, it gives it that time to like simmer way back down.
yeah,
People forget about it. Aurora just came out. Let's talk about Aurora. Aurora's 3x everyone else at this event, and then everyone's like, oh man, Maxx is like next month. And the same thing will happen with the armory deck that happened, that they announce at London for the next month, right?
yeah,
So it was just like this constant up and down cycle for sure on that on those armory decks for sure.
yeah. It's it'll be interesting to see like what we get the rest of the year for these Armory decks and I hadn't really thought about like what you said, like the like we're going to support our sets and make sure that they don't taper off by injecting Armory decks over the next 6 to 9 months to make sure that like it isn't sitting dead stock.
Hmm.
Because if the heroes just don't hit and the set falls flat, it becomes dead stock for stores. The
Hmm.
only way to move that dead stock is to get people excited about those sets again. And
Hmm.
outside of basically just like printing busted cards for those heroes in the expansion slot is to do an armory deck
Yeah.
because it does kind of like, hey, 6 months out, we'll have an armory deck come out, which is perfectly lines up with Aurora and Rosetta, and it's really going to hype people up for Rosetta cards because it should really rejuvenate Aurora, even if she was like very out of the meta.
Yep.
Um, so, and Jarl is supposed to I think come out in the summer, but they moved that one up. So
Right.
interesting to see kind of Lightning Earth. So then, do we see, especially because we only have two Chaos Heroes? Like, do we get a Chaos Hero in an Armory deck
Mm.
maybe this summer,
Yeah.
and
That's
or
true.
and then so we get maybe a Chaos Hero and a Draconic Hero.
That makes sense. I think it does make a lot of sense. I don't think they've like specifically said that that's what they're doing, but like we're on that path right now. Obviously, Maxx is a little bit of an outlier, but also we all know what bright lights, bright
Well,
lights, bright
I mean they
lights needs a
did
little bit of help.
they did do a KO Armory deck after Heavy Hitters too,
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's true.
and then we had what Bolton, Azalea,
Yeah, those feel a little bit like catch up, a little bit of catch up mechanics there, right?
yeah, because
Like
they're garbage heroes. Yeah, and
they
then
just needed them. But like an armory deck hits like completely different than an expansion slot card too, though. Like let's be fair. Like for a new player, for somebody
yes,
that like wants to like see something new or play something new, like an expansion slot card's like, ooh, that's neat. I don't know how that works, but like the whole deck, you're like, oh, I can just pick this up and start playing it.
yeah,
So I think it's a lot of buzz. Like you had mentioned too, the armory deck is pretty good for Aurora. Uh, there's some. I've heard some rumblings, Nate, about being like, "Oh, great, here we go again." Like, because it was like the KO thing. It was like, "Oh my God, how could they give KO Sash?" That dude went on and won absolutely nothing after that, though.
yeah,
So, like, I mean, I always kind of like to bring that up in jest, but I do think um, I would like to point out that I actually think that it's probably not a terrible thing that the perceived or maybe actually the best deck in the format is an armory deck right now, because I think that like adds a little extra buzz, right? Like, oh man, I really want to play Fab, but I like to win. It's like, well, actually, you can buy the best deck in the format for $40 right now,
yep,
and it's like three channel lightning values away from like winning your armory, like legit winning your armory,
yes.
not
Very
like
much so. Like if we did the Armory deck challenge with just like the Aurora deck,
yeah.
and dear God, if you guys want me to do that, I'll do it. I'll do that instead of Bolton. I'll do it with the base. I'll do it no upgrades until I win. That seems more likely than me winning with that freaking Bolton deck. Um,
So funny.
it's. I think that the Aurora deck might be one of the cleanest Armory decks. Just watching like Jason play into Uyang
Hmm.
in their like little game. Like the Aurora deck just looks so clean. It just
Yeah.
the deck flows. Everything makes sense.
Hmm.
It's aggressive. It its hands mostly function. Like it just looks very clean. It reminds me of probably like the KO Armory deck the most. Like the KO
Yeah.
Armory deck was very very clean. The downside was like most of the cards like if you didn't draw the draw discard go again cards, it was a little you're like, what do I do here? It
Yeah.
didn't really play itself all the time, but this deck kind of does. So
Yeah.
um I think if they continue this, I'm a little worried about the Max Armory deck because I don't think Crank is a very intuitive mechanic.
Mm.
Um but we'll see when it comes out what it looks like. I think the Aurora Armory deck is just a great way to draw people in, especially competitive people who are like, okay, like I can feel the power, I can see the power, and I can win games immediately
Yeah.
unsleeving this deck and just playing it into pretty much anybody.
Yeah, I mean that's the secret. Like no one likes to admit it, Nate, but come on, man. Like most card game players, like if you want to get them into a game, like a lot of the times, just like handing them a Jarl deck, like stock out of the box, is not really gonna get like this certain group of card game players juiced. But the Armory deck, and you're like, yeah, look at the calling results. Look at this calling results. She's like 66 showed up. Like she's most of the top 8. And they're like, yeah, sure. I want to, I mean, we all know those guys, right? Like,
Yep.
like I want an edge. I want to like win. Give me the best cards. Give me the best deck right now. So, devil's advocate, I think it's probably not a bad thing that Fab has the best deck in the format for $40 right now.
Do not disagree.
For sure. Yeah, Nate. Yeah, I'm just excited to see what's coming next, man. I'm excited. I'm going to the Pro Tour in April. I'm excited to see what we get for the high seas. That's going to start kicking off soon.
Dude, we need some spoilers like yesterday.
Yeah, something. Give us something. Just give us a little
Dude, it's
taste.
just dead. LSS. We literally don't know what to talk about anymore. And if I
Yeah.
know anything, it's that Carol, J Dub, and Brian exclusively listen to our podcast. And like we didn't record last week. One, I had sick kids.
Yeah.
Um, so my life was kind of in shambles. But two, we also didn't have a whole lot to talk about. And
Yeah.
Ted,
Like,
Ted won't let me unleash Fang Gang on the world. He's too
no,
worried
we
about
will.
it.
No, we got to do that. We got to do that. But we have to get out an episode too. So,
Yes.
but I mean, maybe a little bit shorter episodes, not so bad. Brian's probably awake, wide awake, wondering like, why are we ending the podcast so early? I don't know what to tell you, dude. That's just how it's gonna.
Yeah.
That's just how it's gonna happen this week. So good night.
Good night.
We get to tuck you in now.
Yeah. Nighty night, Brian.
Nighty night, Brian. All right, guys. Thanks everyone for listening. Please like, subscribe, do the do's. Peace.
And remember, put your money where your mouth is.